The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery, but the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com.
And welcome to this week's edition of the Rochester Press Box, being brought to you by the Genesee Brewhouse. Tariq Spence filling in for Bill Pucko, of course, joined by Pat Duffy.
I don't know if I can deal with this new table. I'm looking directly at Kevin Oklobzija, and it's making me uncomfortable.
But it makes for a great face-off. Kevin Oklobzija?
I'm ready to play cards. Let's deal them. Something tells me you take me, man.
Oh, listen, we'll start off with the Sabres in a matter of moments. But first, let's get into a bit of the injury pool we're going on right now. It's sort of like a quarterback survivor pool every week. 2 weeks into the NFL season, we've had so many injuries. Two-time Super Bowl quarterback Ben Roethlisberger done for the year. Eli Manning benched now, and other players have been injured throughout the year. Now Cam Newton has a foot injury. That's the new latest thing. What do we do now? It's almost like survival of the fittest right now.
Well, I mean, I think it's the fault of these teams for hanging out of these quarterbacks for too long. It was only a matter of time. I mean, people forget. Ben Roethlisberger was drafted in 2004. Drew Brees has been around longer than that. You remember there was a debate whether or not the Dolphins should sign Drew Brees or Dante Culpepper to be their franchise quarterback? Like, that's how long this guy has been around. Listen, it's a changing of the guard. It happens every couple of years in the NFL, and to be honest, it's long overdue with these quarterbacks.
But the thing is, none of them have been injuries because of they got, except Nick Foles. Mm-hmm. None have been because a guy got driven into the ground or, three guys from the defensive line just annihilated him on a pass rush, as the NFL has taken that out of the game. Mm. These are injuries that, Drew Brees throwing, his hand hits a guy. That used to happen quite often. Mm-hmm. It probably still does. But, okay, he's out because of that. So all this protect the quarterback edict that has gone into the game, and now guys are falling by the wayside without any contact.
But you could also make the argument, how bad would it be if those rules weren't in place? You'd have half of the league not having quarterbacks right now. And I do want to remind you.
Wait a minute, half the league doesn't.
Okay, good point. It's true. I do want to remind you, a very smart man said on this set about 3 weeks ago.
Here we go.
And we were talking about
Who was the guest that week?
I had said, after you said the Steelers will be fine because of Ben Roethlisberger, I had said, Ben Roethlisberger today is not the Ben Roethlisberger of old. It's only a matter of time before something happens. And he knocks himself out of the season moving his arm forward. His arm just snapped like an old rubber band. Like, I feel bad for the guy. But, I mean, come on. Tariq, you didn't see this coming?
I didn't see this coming, nor did I see Sam Darnold getting mono, which I still don't understand how that happened. But these injuries are happening more and more, and it seems as if teams are just not ready with their backup quarterbacks. And even for the Jets situation, they lost their backup quarterback, so now they're down to the third-string quarterback.
The Bills have 4 automatic wins right now. The Dolphins
what are you doing?
The Dolphins are not trying to win, and the Jets can't win.
This table's already
That's
coming
4
in
wins.
since he's not.
One of them are. I mean, the Bills actually may end up with as many wins as any team that calls that stadium home.
To bring back the crazy old man
MetLife.
to the point that you made. Hold on. The reason why the NFL doesn't have these backup quarterbacks is because you have to invest so much money in your starting NFL quarterback. It's not like 25 years ago where you could have a quality NFL starter and a backup that could start games for other teams. The days of Frank Reich and Bubby Brister, and I could go on and on.
Some would say Teddy Bridgewater's a pretty good backup in New Orleans. We'll find out, but
unique situation, though.
Yes.
Very unique situation. You can't afford to keep a quality quarterback behind your starter anymore.
The Giants did that, and he's sitting on the bench this week because you had a brand new quarterback in Daniel Jones starting for the Giants. I'll get to that with unfinished business coming up in a matter of moments. Also, think about this. Where does now Josh Allen rank when it comes to these quarterbacks? A number of them are injured, but he's performed well in the first 2 weeks.
really well. He's fun to watch and he's fun to listen to. I like a guy who has embraced where he is and is turning into the biggest spokesman for Buffalo.
Absolutely. And it's weird. Like, forget just ranks of quarterbacks in general. How about ranks from the draft last year? How from the end of last season to week 2, they're almost completely upside down. Who would have thought last season that Lamar Jackson would be far and away the best quarterback from that draft right now? He looks like a world beater. Again, a really smart guy. Had Baltimore as a dark horse Super Bowl candidate, but who wants to think about that?
14 more games to play.
Josh Rosen is gone. Sam Darnold is going to take a serious hit in his development, and Josh Allen, a guy who, I'll be honest, I did not want in Buffalo, looks like he might be the most stereotypical stand back there and throw ball quarterback in the league. What is going on, Tariq?
I don't know, but the Bills are 2-0. We're talking about that next on the Rochester Press Box, presented by Genesee Brewhouse.
The Press Box is brought to you in part by Bay & Goodman Pizza, a local Rochester favorite. Corner of North Winton and Browncroft, Bay & Goodman Pizza.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, being brought to you by Genesee Brewhouse. Tariq Spence here. All right, Duffy, you get to go off. He gets to talk about my New York Giants. The Bills are 2-0. Very impressive. You own now New Jersey.
Well, I mean, yeah, thank you. Because you say, oh, well, best team in New York. Yeah, way to go, Tariq. I don't know if you own an Atlas. Listen, I wasn't surprised.
Okay, Josh.
I wasn't surprised by Sunday, and you can't look me in the face and honestly think that the Giants were going to find a way to win that game, even against a team in Buffalo that's still finding its identity.
A home opener in New York. Eli Manning wanted this comeback and play for another year. Yeah, I thought we were going to win it because we've always beaten the Bills. It's always seemed to be we're the best team in football in this area.
You always do till you don't. What is going on with the coaching staff in New York where your best player is not on the field for every single play on offense? Every time that Saquon Barkley comes off the field, you can run a nickel and dime defense, and it's over. You can rush 3 to 4 guys, and Manning takes enough time to find somebody where that sack was coming. And here's the problem. Daniel Jones is starting on Sunday.
Yep.
That's not going to solve any problem. It's not Eli Manning.
He looks great. You know what's great? I wasn't going to watch the Tampa Bay game with the Giants. I wasn't going to watch it at all. But now I am because the table has now turned. It has gone to another era of even if Daniel Jones plays terrible, I'm going to sit there and watch the future of the New York Football Giants. Unfortunately, it comes at the expense of a 2-time Super Bowl winning champion for our franchise. I'll never forget him.
Coaches who make a change often don't get to see that change through. And this just is so weird. If you have, how do you not give the ball to him every time?
Saquon Barkley.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead, against the Bills, big down at the goal line, they throw a swing
Unless
pass.
you're saving him for 14 more games and the fact that you want to have him play with Jones.
Well, I understand you want him to play, but the rest of your team around you would like to win some games, too. They understand who the guy is that should get the ball.
I think that was the Giants' plan the whole time. They wanted Jones quicker. They got him now. Eli had his 2 chances, and this was the plan. Now Barkley and Jones the rest of the way.
So they didn't even give Eli a chance, really. They just wanted, okay.
But then that doesn't make any sense because he's guaranteed $23 million. You know if they would have cut Eli in the spring, that we would
Let's trade him to the Steelers.
Okay, he's got a no-move clause. And
Well, he might agree, though.
No, he's got his family in New Jersey. Listen, that's a whole other thing. My point I'm trying to make is if they would have cut him in the spring, they would have saved $17 million. Those 2 games that Eli Manning played cost the Giants $17
That's monopoly
million.
money in the NFL.
Not when you lose the way you did to the Cowboys and the Bills back-to-back, and that's how his career ends.
Still going to have the money.
Speaking of the Bills, the Bengals are now up. It's the home opener. That place is going to be rocking. Is it 3-0 by the end of the afternoon?
Okay, I am.
It's 3-0 before the beginning, or before the afternoon starts. Bengals are a bad team.
Whoa,
They're a bad team.
What are you doing,
Knock
Kevin
again.
Oklobzija? I'm knocking all over the place, man. I'm knocking. This game scares me for a couple of reasons. One, I don't like how much the Bills are favored by. They're 6-point favorites in this game. 2, Andy Dalton, for whatever reason, always plays a solid game against the Bills. And there's
Bills fans do love him,
That's
too.
the thing. There's that connection. I tweeted out a joke about Andy Dalton, and all these people, how dare you say these things? It's real now. Let's get back to this thing. Okay, you have the fact that the Patriots are a week away, and people are already talking about them. I don't know what it's like in the dressing room. You have the fact that the Bengals, they're not as bad as you think they are.
So this is a trap game. Kind of.
I don't believe in trap games, but the fact that the Bengals were beat as badly as they
I
were
think
by
it's
the 49ers.
great that the Bills could be in that situation to have a trap game. That says they're kind of back.
That's not, no, 2 wins over 2 bad teams, and now we have a potential trap
Another
game?
bad team. It's 3 wins over 3 bad teams.
Shut up. All right, here's the thing. I think the Bills win this game, but I don't think they cover the 6 points. I think that a late Cincinnati score keeps it within 6.
You're making me nervous. Do you have a time machine and are able to predict these games before they're played yet?
That's why he's wearing that jacket.
Oh, stop it. Leave him alone.
What did I say?
My goodness. Can you two talk Sabres coming up next? Can we do that?
No.
I feel like a referee having a face-off. That's on the way next to Rochester Press Box, brought to you by Genesee Brew House.
Here's the Press Box trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Here's the Press Box trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Welcome back to the Press Box, being brought to you by Genesee Brew House. All right, it's time for Like It or Not. Let's go Sabres preseason. What do you think so far? Sabres trying to come back.
I really like what the Sabres did. There's money flying around all over the NHL and free agency right now. The Sabres could have gone out and spent, and they did not. They spent their money on a guy that they're keeping in-house, and they went and tried to plug in tiny scenarios that make them a little bit better, because I don't think that team is as bad as that record showed they were last year. I think a lot of it had to do with coaching. You were economical. You put players in places to succeed, bringing them in from free agency, bringing them up from Rochester. I really, really like where the Sabres sit right now.
I do too, because I think this gives everyone in that room the belief that management's behind them. Management believes in this group and the core of this group, rather than, let's tear it apart, let's go find somebody else to bring in. Let's start with let's keep what we have, and then bring in a coaching staff that maybe works a little better than the last one, and it gets people to buy in. And I think they're much improved. I think the parts they have are there. They just they really need a goalie to say, I'm number one.
And that's my biggest fear, is you're waiting on the kid that they drafted a couple years ago, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and he's got a hip injury right now. He's probably going to spend, 2 years in Rochester, getting ready, baking?
Yeah, I mean, That's typically what it takes.
The problem there is you're wasting 2 years of Jack Eichel's contract, and by the time that happens, Dahlin is going to be a restricted free agent, and there's been lots of restricted free agency problems with names that won't be as talented as Dahlin. It would really, really stink to finally have your goalie ready to go, and all of a sudden you have roster upheaval, and you've wasted the prime years of these guys' careers.
Yeah, Eichel led the team in assists and points last year, so we'll wait and see what happens with that contract. All right, Kevin, let's go. Wild card's coming up. We got the American League. You're looking at Oakland, Tampa, and Cleveland. 3 teams enter, 2 teams leave.
Another big injury for Cleveland with Kipnis out. However, they have an easy schedule, so they have a chance. I think it's a great race. I love the fact the Cubs are on the edge. I think it's awesome. Everybody counted the Brewers out when Yelich got hurt. Maybe rightfully so. They have an easy schedule. I mean, they have an easy schedule, and the Cubs with how many against 6 left with the Cardinals, 7 off the Cardinals?
I am worried about Washington. Everybody thought after the year they lost with Bryce Harper that they would go down in the tubes. Here's this team on the verge of making the playoffs and possibly going deep if they can.
Again, shows you don't have to pay a guy billions of dollars. You can move on if your scouting staff's good and you drafted well. You're not relying on that one guy.
All right, unfair question because you guys don't know what's coming. Paying college athletes football. Tim Tebow got in a lot of trouble for saying what he said, but that's how he feels about amateurs. They should stay amateurs, pay them or not.
Look, I've been saying this for years, and it just happened out in California. Let them own their name and likeness. That's all you have to do. You continue to make your money. It's not going to put much of a ding into the money that the NCAA is making, and it's even across the board. The football player is going to have as much of an opportunity in a free market as the female volleyball player that plays at Northwestern. Just let them control their own names and pictures.
What about team spirit? What about all the rah-rah? I went to this school, alumni. There's a lot of money floating around.
There's a lot of money floating around with alumni before any rules that allowed them to give them money.
Cheers.
So, we'll wait and see what happens there. You're watching the Rochester Press Box, brought to you by Genesee Brew House. Unfinished business coming up next.
And now here's this week's MVP Experience Stat of the Week, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy. No appointment ever needed.
In now to Eichel. He floated one.
Like it or not,
involving Eli Manning. Is it time for Davis Webb?
I think it's time to see if there's something else there because they're going to have to make a quick decision. If you think about it, is it Davis Webb? Because the Giants may very well end up with a high draft pick. The blame is not on Eli. Look, Eli's not been great, but that team is terrible. Ben McAdoo has lost that team. It really did appear that week. I think it's worth giving the other guy a shot. Eli was in this spot before, if you remember, even though he was the high pick, when a guy named Kurt Warner was the Giants quarterback and they benched him halfway through the year and they let Eli play. And that team was somewhat in contention. So, yeah, I think Eli really should probably sit down, but it shouldn't be the blame on him. It should go on the coach.
Bob, you can't understate the significance of a quarterback change in an NFL team, can you?
Agreed. The one thing I'm seeing from Eli that I haven't seen in quite some time is you read his face when things go wrong. He doesn't seem like that old leader he used to be. He falls into those doldrums along with his team and his players. He's not that rallying leader anymore. Conversely, I was at the Broncos-Eagles game this weekend, and Carson Wentz seems to be the real deal to me.
It's like chicken and the egg thing, though. Did the team drag him down, or did he drag the team down?
That's a tough one, but I think he's a function of all the stuff that's going wrong.
You're right, and I do think Eli's been bad. I'm saying it's not like the blame should just go on him, but they have to be looking at the future.
This cinnamon sugar pumpkin latte looks amazing.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, I wish I were this creative.
Oh, I'm not that creative.
Oh, wow. Did you just carve this?
I did, yeah.
Try our new signature latte. It's all things pumpkin at Dunkin.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, being brought to you by Genesee Brew House. Segment right now being brought to you by Dunkin. America runs on Dunkin.
Tariq just brought up Tim Tebow and the comments he made about what's going on in California with paying college athletes. And you can talk for days about whether or not college athletes should be paid, but what I find interesting is the hypocrisy of the whole situation. Tim Tebow makes a salary to talk about college sports on ESPN, and he used part of that time while making money to talk about college sports to criticize college athletes who want money for their name and likeness on a network that paid, and I'm pretty sure, I just looked this up a second ago, $73 billion. Was it billion or million? Let's go with million. 73, no, I don't even know. It was a heck of a lot of money that ESPN paid for the rights to broadcast college sports. In fact, the comments that Tim Tebow made were then rebroadcast on a 4-hour show they run every Saturday to cover college sports that's sponsored by the Home Depot and a couple of other huge advertisements. The money that ESPN and everybody around but these kids makes is ridiculous. And I understand that they want to keep the money in their pockets. Where I am disappointed is where Tim Tebow, a guy who was in the locker room with some of these guys that needed that money, can look into a camera while making a salary from all of this money that the kids aren't getting and say, well, they don't want the money anyway. Either you are unbelievably out of touch or for shame for holding on to the company line that they made you keep. Tim Tebow, I'm disappointed.
3-0, the Buffalo Bills. Already said that's what they're going to be. How could they lose to Cincinnati? The best thing, however, isn't that 3-0 or just that they're 3-0. It's what they do to Western New York. People say, you can't give money for a stadium, can't help. Maybe not. But when the Bills win, let me tell you, Mondays in Western New York, people are a lot happier, a lot livelier, a little more jump in their step, whatever it be. Whether it's the license plate holder, the bumper sticker, the number of Bills fans here who not live and die by, but whose lives are enlightened and find enjoyment in watching the Bills. What happens with the Bills and me is fine. Hey, I'll watch the game. If they win, great. It's better if they lose. However, the mood in this area is a whole lot bigger and better when the Bills are good. The fact they're relevant again is kind of fun.
Have you ever been in the middle of the road and not made a decision? The longer you stay there, that's the wrong decision. The New York Giants made a decision. 2-time Super Bowl champion, 2008 and 2012. I'll always remember Eli for it. Western New York will, because that stopped the Patriots from winning 2 more Super Bowls. One thing I will say about Eli Manning, I think he did it with class. He did it the best he could. He wasn't the most mobile. He didn't have the greatest arm, but he showed up when he needed to. But it's time to move on. When you get to the middle of the road like the Giants did, they made a turn. They went and got Saquon Barkley, and they wanted to keep Odell Beckham Jr. They couldn't keep Odell Beckham Jr. Odell Beckham Jr. looked pretty good against the Jets the other night. The unfortunate thing is it's time to move on, and I wasn't going to watch the Tampa Bay game at all. But now I will, and not care what the record is. Why? Because our new quarterback who we drafted in the sixth pick overall is finally playing football. We now have a direction. We're not competing, we're rebuilding. And that's fine with me. You're in the NFL, you either compete or you basically decide we're going to rebuild. And the Giants decided to rebuild. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with Eli. Sometimes you just have to say thank you for your services. But I still thank Eli.
I'm pulling for you, Tariq. I am. So help me God. If the Bills lose this game against Cincinnati, I'm never going to talk to you ever again. So help me God.
I don't believe that. I can't believe you two would actually put that on the line right now. Thank you for all those watching this week for the Genesee Brewhouse. Thank you for sponsoring today's Rochester Press Box. And make sure you're tuning in for today's game. We'll see you next Sunday, hopefully with a Bills win. But Kevin will be right forever if it's not. Have a nice night.